are live. Happy Monday to you all. As promised, I was going to do sort of the final live stream to cover the SHOT Show week, essentially. For me, SHOT Show week started a couple of days early when I shot my first NRL Hunter match in Arizona at Gun Sight. I thought I'd talk about that. That was honestly a blast. And I did a couple of live streams about SHOT Show proper, and if there are any questions on that, I'll be able to take that in the Q&A. If you've seen my live streams before, you notice that I'm not usual live streaming spots. I usually do it either from my office or from my other desk. I have a few places around the house where I work. I work from home, so I like to move around. Not even in the garage in front of the safe, since it's winter and it's cold in the garage. My wife has some sort of a women's meeting here for the Jewish organization she's involved with. So I am hiding. In the different room upstairs, and on the floor below me are 35 women. I don't know what they're discussing, but I thought it would be good to make myself scarce. I don't have any sort of a decent lighting setup here, so there's a shadow on the wall. I couldn't, break it down much. For that, you'll have to forgive me. And in the meantime, assuming you guys can hear me well, please put something in the chat box. I have an indication that the microphone is working, but if it doesn't, now's the time to speak up. Of course, if it doesn't, you probably don't hear me. Let's see. The microphone looks like it's working. Yeah. Okay. So that is that. I'm getting all sorts of notifications that the stream is live. It's going to my local's website. It's going to Rumble. It's going to YouTube, and it's going to X. Mr. Honorable Mention is here. It says all okay. Excellent. So at locals, they can hear me. I assume that the sound is perfectly reasonable as well. I'll give people a few more minutes to file in, and then I'm going to start. In the meantime, as again, if you've been here before, you know that my life is relatively busy. Tomorrow at 6:30 a.m., I have the dubious honor of having to get on a plane again. And this time I'm heading over to a conference specific to my day job, but it's called Photonics West. So I will be in San Francisco. And San Francisco used to be one of my favorite places because of how beautiful the city is. And over the last few years, it became one of my least favorite places because of how thoroughly it was destroyed by the left-wing leadership in California and in the city itself, by the excrement and the urine and you name it. And I'm not going to rent a car. I'm just going to try to stay in a hotel close to a conference center. And I'll be back home on Thursday night. Okay. All right. Mr. Blind Spotter's here. All good on YouTube. Okay. So that's that. I do not know if I'll be able to do much from San Francisco. I've got 2 evenings there, and I expect to be relatively busy. So this was kind of a chance to talk about NRL Hunter a little bit. So first of all, I'm going to pop up a couple of pictures that were taken by Travis Ashida, the guy who is in charge at NRL Hunter. As you can tell by the watermark, you're about to see. There we go. So this is a picture of me with the binoculars looking for plates. Notice that I have managed to look very tactical and all that. So very appropriate look for the competition. And here is the picture of me actually shooting on the same stage. There, hold on a second. I'll share the picture in a moment. I know you guys don't see it yet. I'm just getting them both open. There we go. So here's a picture of me with the binoculars, looking very professional and all that. And here is another from the same stage where we had to shoot off of the log. I'm just showing you as proof that I was really there. Right. So this kind of shows you the gear a little bit. I used like a Geovid Pro AB Plus binoculars. I used my fix in 6.5 Creedmoor. Tangent Theta 7 to 35 by 56 scope. I had the Vortex Impact on there, although I didn't use it at all during the match. It was well within my weight limitations and was on there anyway. I might as well. For tripod, Sky Triple Pull and Q's Half Nelson suppressor. So I got the gear right. The gear was great. I got the look. I look like I know what I'm doing. I've got the look. I've got the gear. I've got it all figured. Skills were a little bit lacking, but everything else, no problem. It was kind of an interesting thing. I had a discussion with somebody afterwards at show with the German named Marcus Holm. He was a very, very good shot by all accounts. And these NRL Hunter event was one of the Pro-Am matches, right? So I went in as an amateur, they pair you with a pro, and you get to go through the match with them, and you learn a lot. And that was awesome, by the way. That was a great way to do your first match. So I love that. I'll talk about that in a sec. So I came in with the most Gucci set of gear and accessories possible, right? And I was talking with Marcos afterwards at SHOT Show, and I said, well, I mean, in theory, I could go in with more modest stuff, but that would also be kind of posing. I have nice stuff. Why not use it? It doesn't make me a better shooter, but it doesn't hurt. If I have it, why not use it? So I'm not sure what the right way of approaching would have been, but I enjoyed using the gear I had, and in some ways it was relatively helpful. Mr. Benjamin Belkin, I concur in what San Francisco used to be. I proposed to my wife there. We will not go back until they turn it around, but I will probably be dead first. I don't know how old you are, but there's a good chance you're right. My wife and I used to, I lived in Los Angeles for many years, and we used to go to San Francisco quite frequently, just for a weekend or something, because it's such a beautiful place, nice restaurants, No more. So going back to NRL Hunter. So the way this thing works with the Pro-Am, you register as an amateur. If you register as an amateur, you can do pretty much anything you want. It turned out that you don't have to make weight, but my rifle is configured to weigh about 15.5 pounds, which is more or less what I was going for. I could make it a lot lighter, but I figured I could use the weight for stability and recoil control. I do have a couple other rifles set up that are under 12 pounds. XM388. If you have all the cool, great gear, you might as well use it. No point leaving it at home. Correct, right? I'm not making a pretense that I'm an especially good shot, right? So I think I always make it relatively clear. I'm not the worst shot in the world, but compared to people who compete all the time, I suck. Compared to people who generally just go to the range, I'm good. So it all depends on your reference scale. But I know people who are really, really good, so I know that I'm not. But with gear, I agree with you. I have nice gear, why not use it? So for the Pro-Am match, I go in as an amateur. They pair me with a pro. The pro I was paired with was Chris Moore. I brought him some bad luck. He shot a couple of stages relatively poorly, presumably by his standards. I would have been happy for that. And if you go in as an amateur, so in NRL Hunter, I assume you guys are familiar with how NRL Hunter works. You know what? It's getting warm here. Let me take my sweater off. Hold on a second. Okay, that's better. So the way Benjamin Becker, 44 years old, I say shoot your quality gear can only make skill building that much easier. I don't know if it necessarily makes it easier, but it does to a certain degree. And I'll talk when I talk about the scope. I'll get on that. But anyhow, so if as an amateur, you don't have to run the stage blind. Normally, the way NRL Hunter works, you do not see anybody shoot the stage before. You are kind of sequestered. Then when they start your time, you have 4 minutes to get to the shooting position, jog 20 yards, something like that. I didn't jog, I walked. I'm not in the weight class where you want me jogging. And then you altogether have 4 minutes to locate the plates you're supposed to shoot, figure out the ballistic solution, and engage them. In practical terms, what it means is that they tell you that from this spot, all plates are visible. And you can have one plate that you have to shoot from 4 distinct positions, or 2 plates in 2 positions, meaning you have to shoot them in a particular order, first from one position, then from the other. Or you can have 4 plates from one position. Okay, so these are the possibilities. So they tell you what the stage is supposed to be. They tell you what the plates are supposed to look like. Squares, round ones. One stage we shot at had unicorns. We had the Roadrunner. I mean, they were kind of creative. But fundamentally, I timed out on every stage. The way it usually works, so they tell you the plates are out that way, and good luck. So this particular match was set up so that the plates were relatively easy to find. Didn't help me a whole lot. And the way it works, you get on your binoculars, find the plates, and then transition to the rifle. Some people, some amateurs are there, so we're trying to kind of game the system, maximize their shot probability and all that. So they were looking for plates early and all that sort of jazz. In the very beginning, I decided I'm going to do it differently. So I did not try to game it. I did not try to accelerate the amount of time it would take me to hit plates. What I wanted to see the pro that I was paired with. And the pro I was paired with, the gentleman's name is Chris Moore, really nice guy, and a very, very good shot. So I learned quite a lot from him. I hope. We'll see if that's true during the next match. And so what I did, rather than look for plates necessarily, I spent most of my time looking at how he does it, how he transitions, how he manages gear, what he does, etc. And then when it was my turn to shoot, rather than try to do some incompetent problem solving on my own, I just basically tried to mimic his choices in terms of which shooting position to take and all that sort of stuff. Some, perhaps if I had to choose, I would do differently, but I don't think it would necessarily be better. Some of the shooting positions he uses I cannot do because honestly, my knees just don't bend that way anymore. So one of the things I have to, having not done one match, one of the things I need to figure out is which shooting positions I can do and which I cannot. I may have to bring 2 bags. I'll talk about that in a sec. Mr. Jonathan Ockhab, I didn't realize you were at the Pro-Am. I was also there. Yeah, sorry. So I kind of announced it on my locals website, but I should have posted it on YouTube. Just didn't think about it. But anyhow, it was all a blast, and coming out of that, I have a much better idea, I think, on how to train for it. And when we start talking about shooting positions, I also need to really very carefully think about which shooting positions I should take. The biggest problems I had were not so much with shooting, it was with shooting on a clock. So first you have to find the plates, which I'm not especially good at. I'm a late onset hunter. Finding stuff on the hillside is not something I'm good at. Getting better, but not very good at. And the way it works, you have to find the plates, you have to figure out what some landmarks near the plates are, and then transition to the rifle and find those plates again. If you have a binocular with a ballistic calculator like I did, you have an arm thing and you write down your drops for whatever plates you found, and then you get back on the rifle and you have to find them again. And I found some interesting quirks about, my specific quirks. For example, I had a hell of a time even knowing where the plates are from binoculars, finding them again in the rifle scope. And almost invariably, when I first got on the rifle, I was looking to the right and well above where the plates actually were. So there's something about how, excuse me. Oh, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm drinking this horrible herbal thing from a Chinese store. It keeps you going, but it tastes horrible. Where was I? Yeah. So there's something about how I line up behind the gun that is just misaligned. And it looks like I am not, when I first get a rifle going, when I open up the bipod and set it up, it's pretty clear that I'm not getting the bipod to the right height because I'm pointing God knows where. So I'll do some drills to figure that out. It's hard to do the drills on finding plates since at the range where I shoot, I know where the plates are. But the shooting drills and position transition drills, that I can do. Okay, Mr. Alpine, what magnification were you using to find targets in the rifle scope? I ran almost the entire match on about 12 power, and that was plenty, right? So I did not think there was one stage where I dialed it up a little bit because we were shooting at relatively small things and relatively far away. But I ran pretty much the whole thing on 12 power, and honestly, I could have run it on 10 too. That was one of the advantages of having a very, very nice scope, right? So the 7-35 tangent is about as good as it's going to get. I remember in the past when I watched some matches, like the Burris Team Challenge, etc. You look around, you're trying to find all these plates, and if your optic is not as good, you might be looking in the shadows and trying to figure out, is there a plate there? Is there no plate there? Can't quite tell. With the tangent, you look in the shadows, you see everything that's in there, right? I never had any doubt of my mind of where the plate actually was once I found it, or where the plate wasn't while I was looking for it, right? I think the main frustration for me was just this basicness. So there's something I'm doing wrong in terms of how I set up behind the rifle. A lot of it, I suspect, comes down to not being very good in finding landmarks, right? So Chris Estella, when I was really struggling to find a plate, Chris, my pro, he was right there next to me, a little bit behind because he's a smart man. I apparently did not look happy. I've been told that watching me fuck up on a stage is one of the most entertaining things ever because it is this steady state of cursing in multiple languages. But Chris was going, okay, see, there is this A shape over inside the mountain. The plate is just at the 3 o'clock of that. I'm going, the A shape? My ass, what the fuck are you looking at? I see nothing there remotely resembling the alphabet. But that's the thing. By the end of it, I started finding landmarks better. Although the landmarks that Chris was describing did not make a huge amount of sense to me because we all look at this differently, but I found some others. And I don't think there's really a way to train that. It's just practice. It would be nice to find some local matches to shoot, but that's the part that gets complicated for me. I travel so much for my day job that I don't think it's fair to my family to be also traveling to tournaments and going to tournaments during the weekends. I generally don't go to the range during weekends. I try to do everything during weekdays, and on the weekends, there are a couple other things we do, but I want to spend time with my wife, my kids. The only way I was able to do this NRL Hunter match is simply because it was the weekend right before SHOT Show, so there was an existing trip, and I did a couple of days to that. The next match I'm going to shoot will be the Rattlesnake Butte up in Colorado in the beginning of April. And again, it's the same business. It's within driving distance for me, so I can just load up the car and go. And it is the weekend right before I need to be in Colorado anyway for a space symposium. So since I have a day job trip planned anyway. I'm just going to add a couple of days to it and go shoot a match. And after that, the next one I'm going to shoot is likely to be the Burris Optics Team Challenge. And that's going to be in Wyoming in June. I don't know the dates yet. I need to sign up. I don't know if they open sign up yet. So that's going to be the 3 of these matches that I want to shoot in the first 6 months of the year. And we'll see what happens afterwards. I had a blast at this match. The crowd is nice. The people are very nice. Everybody is helpful. It's a very welcoming environment. Everybody has a sense of humor, which I appreciate. And I didn't get shot for my sense of humor, which is even better. It's probably close a couple of times. Just an absolute blast. Right. There are some other interesting things, right? There's certain decisions that you have to make on the clock that just did not occur to me. For example, I have the impact, the weapon-mounted laser rangefinder on my rifle. There were, I think, 2 stages where the way they set up the glassing position is under a tree, and I'm glassing through the trees. And because I'm excuse me, because I'm glassing through the trees, I can see the target plates. But the one that's a little bit further up on a hill, I cannot quite lace because there are, branches. I can't measure distance. And I'm starting to contort myself, position myself this way, all sorts of unsteady shit, wasting all this time trying to figure out the distance, completely forgetting I can just get in the rifle, find that plate, measure it with the impact, and be done. One of the things that I learned, and again, I wasn't trying to maximize my points. If I'm shooting for points, one of the things I learned, I need to give myself some time to find plates. And if we have a total of 4 minutes, by the time the 2 minutes elapse, I need to be behind the rifle, because building up a proper shooting position was slow. That's one of the things I can practice, so I'll be better, well, significantly better by the time we get to April. But building up a shooting position, finding a plate is still going to take me a while, and it will take me a while until I shoot a few matches. So if I'm trying to maximize points, if I don't see a particular plate, just screw it, shoot what you see, get the points, and move on. And if I cannot easily figure out the distance with a binocular, but I know where the plate is, just get on the rifle, measure it with a laser rangefinder. I could have done quite a lot better if I was just a little bit more efficient. But another interesting thing, when the RO says 15 seconds left, all your fundamentals fly out the window, you get shaky, you start slapping the trigger, all sorts of shit happens. And that's, again, I don't have a better way of dealing with it other than just practice. The one part of it that is relatively easy to practice, that I am going to practice, I'm going to go take my 22, go put a 2-inch plate at 100 yards, and stand up, plop down, build a position, take a shot, move 12 inches to the side, reacquire the target, take a shot, move 12 inches back, something. So this business of changing your position and reestablishing your shooting position, I guess that makes sense. Moving and then reestablish shooting position. That's the one thing that's relatively easy to train, and that I need to train. If I had a little more time, most of the plates were not super hard. The wind did get tricky here. And the wind was not very strong, but it was kind of a fishtailing, facing you sometimes a little bit from here, sometimes a little bit from here. There were a couple of plates I missed because of the bad wind call, but most of my misses were because I just ran out of time and started slapping the trigger and stuff like that. It was quite frustrating, but I don't see any sort of a reasonable way to work around that other than by deliberate practice. And now I have a better idea what to practice, and by shooting matches. I suspect that the thing I need to focus on the most right now is building up a proper shooting position rapidly and on the clock. I need to be able to fire 4 aimed shots at 2 MOA target in under 2 minutes comfortably. If I can do it in 90 seconds, that would be better. But I'll take 2 minutes. I'll take 2 minutes, and these 2 minutes have to be unrushed. Watching the pros shoot, they look like they have all the time in the world, right? It's very, very impressive, so relaxed. Love to be able to do that, but may take a while. Once I figure out the building shooting position issue, I'm sure other problems will pop up. I need to see if I can find some sort of reasonable way of training myself to find targets. Maybe I'll go sit on the side of the mountain, look for deer, or something like that. It's good for my hunting exploits anyway, but we'll see. Let's see. Wilford, how far and what size were these targets? The targets were mostly between 300 and 900 yards. They're supposed to be no less than 2 MOA. Quite a few of them were bigger than that. They were really not trying to challenge us too much. I think they knew that. I think they were trying to get the amateurs to not be too dejected. So, we'll see. Alpine, sorry if you already went over this, but what was your biggest weakness and biggest strength? I don't know if there were any real strengths. I think it's too early to talk about strengths. I'm not, but the actual shooting fundamentals, now I'm not super worried. Everything else is a problem. I think my biggest weakness was building up a shooting position quickly and requiring the target in the rifle scope quickly. That was probably the biggest weakness. And that happens to be the one thing I have the means to train. One thing that I did not have to deal with this time around, I didn't have to go and try to figure out what shooting positions to choose because I was just shadowing a much better shooter and I was just trying to do what he does. But for example, there were several shooting positions where he just plops down on his knees and he's able to get his butt on the ground between his knees, right? My knees don't bend that way. Generally, standing on my knees is not my best thing, but with knee pads, it's fine. But what happens is that I cannot sit down on my heels, right? And I don't want to injure my knees. As you get older, every injury takes forever to heal. So generally, what works really well for me for situations like this, and if you've seen my video on the MDT triple pull, if I need to be shooting for my knees, what I do is that I take a bag and I put it right under my hamstring on the shooting side, and that is good enough to keep me relatively steady. That is quite comfortable. Well, the catch is that I brought one shooting bag with me, assuming I should just do everything with one shooting bag. And if you are using a shooting bag for support, like on a log, then you have to be on your knees, and that makes me very, very unsteady. I need to think through this a little bit. I have a ton of bags. Some are super light in terms of carrying a load. They're not gonna get in the way, and I need to kind of think through this a little bit. Normally, when I practice, I tend to shoot rather than kneeling. I tend to just sit my ass and shoot that way. And at the stages there, I think that would work okay. But I was kind of concerned because you have to, shift positions. It's much slower to shift positions after you're plopped down on your butt. On the other hand, if that increases my shot probability from a standpoint of maximizing points, that might be a better way to go. For example, okay, give me 1 sec. I'll go mute and turn off the video just for a moment. Where's that thing? Okay, sorry about that. Should be back on. Okay. So, for example, so when I go hunting or when I practice, one of the most steady shooting positions for me was when I sit my butt. I have a triple pull on this rifle, so the triple pull is mostly extended, and I'm using one of the tripod legs as a rear support. And I'm actually pretty good at shooting that way, and it's comfortable for me. I didn't do any of that because I was trying to mimic what the pro was doing. Doing the same position from the knees is actually unpleasant for me, right? I can kind of do it, but that was uncomfortable. Another interesting thing was, and I've mentioned that in the post earlier, is that you kind of have to test your clothing and stuff first. I wore these very fancy and very high quality pants, and it was not that cold by my standards, so I didn't have thermal underwear. By the end of day two, I had on the inside of the upper leg, I was just everything was rubbed raw. It did not help my concentration at all. So I need to, before the next match, I need whatever whatever pants I'm gonna use, I'm gonna wear them for a couple of days and make sure there are no raw spots of any sort. That's kind of a it's a weird thing, right? But it's if you're trying to shoot in a clock, every little thing can make a difference, and oftentimes a good one. Okay. So let's see. What else? The binoculars. Talking about the gear a little. So as I said, I didn't use it when I was practicing. Works nicely. Didn't use it during the match, which was a mistake. The remote for it did manage to pull off. It was on that Velcro thing. They give you Velcro thing. Does not work for me. I know a bunch of people who use it and it works well. Did not work. Current AR style pistol grip that is opened up in the back, and you can insert the moving forward. In terms of gear, the Leica binoculars were excellent. Field of view was good. The image quality was spectacular. If I had a clear line of sight to the target, it ranged it accurately. So I cannot blame the binocular or the ballistic calculation for my misses. I take full responsibility for those. Would it be better if I had a little more magnification? Maybe 12 to 50 would be better, but I don't know. It's hard to say. I think, again, given how good these are optically and from what I've seen to date, I think in terms of image quality of all the LRF binoculars I've seen, the Leicas do have an edge, especially in the center field performance. Swaros have slightly wider field of view and flatter edges, but in the center, I think Leica is better, and that's that's the part of the image I use the most. It also doesn't hurt that with the GeoVid Pros, with the Leicas, my eye fatigue from using them for extended period of time is basically zilch. They are spectacularly comfortable to use. And that is something, when we look at the binoculars, it is something that does not get enough credit. These are, in terms of eye fatigue, these are by far the most forgiving LRF equipped binoculars I've ever used. So that worked well. The way Leica does the user interface for ranging is not ideal for matches. It works fine, but it's not ideal for matches, in that for a match, you kind of want to range and then get a screen that's fairly data rich, that has everything right there and quickly, because you're on the clock. Leica comes out of the hunting world, and the way to do this, you press a button, you get the distance, then you get the drop, then you get the wind, then you get the shot probability analysis. So you're spending a couple of seconds waiting for these screens to flip, which is not ideal, but again, that's not what brought me down. And I had a long talk with the Leica people at SHOT Show. They didn't have a booth, but they did an event for media. And it looks like on the next generation, for both the regular rangefinder binocular, rangefinder monocular, and for the binocular, I think that will be rectified. In the meantime, I don't think I'll have any issues going forward with the GeoVid Pro. Works beautifully, and the image quality is just superb. That's going to be my primary match and hunting binocular for the foreseeable future until I find something better. With the rifle scopes, again, one of the joys of using a very, very fancy rifle scope was that I was never in doubt of what I was actually seeing. And tangents have wonderful depth of field, so I didn't need to mess with the sight focus knob very much at all. I didn't need to go to very high magnification to see everything. As far as actual shooting, once you knew where the plates were, you don't need a very fancy optic to be competitive with this. So the Pro I've spared with Chris, he was shooting with Burris XTR Pro, and on balance, I'd have to say that for match use, etc., in terms of bang for the buck, I think the XTR Pro is the kind of where it's at. That's where $2,000 price range is where you get the most for your money. As you go high up in price, you do get more, but at an increasingly higher cost. I think from what I've seen so far, for match use, Burst XTR Pro is probably the sweet spot, right? And my tangent is way into the realm of diminishing returns, but boy, is it wonderful. Tracking is perfect. Image quality is spectacular. Just can't complain. Bipods. There were, I think, 2 or 3 stages where I think I'd fuck up even worse if I didn't have the MDT SkyPod triple pull. For NRL Hunter, again, it's not going to make you a better shot, but there are stages where the triple pull is like a magic wand, right? So on the other hand, through some inexperience, right, getting it deployed quickly and to exactly the right height, for me was a little bit of a challenge. So I kind of need to work. I can build a shooting position. The way my rifles are currently set up, I don't think I can get a triple pull into an open light category. At least not with a tangent on the rifle. But with the lighter scope, I probably could. Either way, for now, I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to shoot still with an open heavy rifle. I'm going to use the same gun. I'm not going to transition. Earlier today, I snuck out to the range for a little bit before I need to pick up my kids from school. And I have 2 rifles set up for 12 pounds. And one is another fix, a 308 with a 5-25 tangent on it. And another is, for production class, is a Stag Pursuit bolt gun and 6.5 BRC. Historically, the 6.5 BRC is not something I could control well enough shooting, for example, standing off of the tripod. But I got this titanium muzzle from Area 419, and not only is it quite light, shoot today it keeps just fine. I can spot my misses and all that sort of stuff. So my plan is to shoot whatever matches I'm going to shoot this year with the same gun I had this time. It's the fix in 6.5 Creedmoor, 7-35 tangent, with or without the impact, probably with the impact, and SkyPod, triple pull SkyPod. What's going to happen next year? See, ultimately is to do this with a rifle you might actually hunt with, and 15.5 pounds heavy that I'm gonna hunt with. So eventually, to an open light configuration that will take. But right now, on the carbon fiber barrel and the 5-20 agent, I can do all the gun works. I don't. So I'll need to experiment a little bit. All right. Questions, concerns, Christmas wishes, about the whole NRL Hunter experience or about anything I covered or you haven't yet covered about show. I'm going to drink some more of this vile tea. It is to make you feel better. If that is true, should be full of energy in about 8 seconds. This thing is horrible. It's like drinking foul-tasting sand. Yeah. We'll see. All right, guys. Questions? If there are no questions, I can go pack and go to sleep. I'm good with that. Okay. Let's see. Sometimes we get questions where I do not expect them as comments at the different platforms. I stream this. Nope. So far, so good. All right. Let's see. Think you'll shoot any matches in Washington State this year? I'm not slated to make it to Washington. I'm not sure what matches are out there. I doubt it, honestly. Washington is kind of out of my way. I'm going to be in Portland for a couple of days in a couple of weeks. It's kind of close to Washington State. I don't know which part of it you're in. I have to go visit a customer up in Hood River. So, John, sounds like you had fun. Thanks. Oh, I had an absolute blast. Look, it's cold, dirty, tiring, and spectacularly frustrating. But at the end of this journey, I am going to be a far better practical marksman than I am now. Right? If you give me time and I can shoot prone, yeah, I can shoot. I'm not as good as quite a few people I know, but I can shoot. This was an entirely a different ball game. Unknown targets at unknown distances on the clock kicked my ass, but kicked my ass in the most profoundly educational way you can imagine. Once again, I really enjoyed it. If your interest is in precision rifle and you haven't done one of these, I highly recommend it. It is an absolute blast. And again, the environment are nice, the people are friendly. It's just a good way to get into this. Mr. Alpine, I'm just north of Seattle. I'd love to shoot a match with you eventually. I hope we can eventually make it happen, but yeah, north of Seattle is a little bit out of my way, unfortunately. For my day job, I primarily work with the military, and we just don't have a ton of customers there. I go to a bunch of different places around the country where the military is, where the bases are, some of the prime contractors that we work with, but somehow Seattle is not big for us. Mr. Alpine, we have great matches out here, but not a lot of NRL Hunter here. That's unfortunate. So, I have another question for you guys. So I assume the type of matches you have up there is more like traditional race gun PRS. That seems to be more prevalent. One of other types of matches that I was really thinking of was something like this quantified performance, whatever they're called. Basically, gas gun with a low power variable. That sounds entertaining. Again, it's more of a practical approach to shooting. So that's something I'm actually trying to see if I can find a few matches that I could try shooting and see if I can make my schedule work. That would be a blast. Mr. Blind Spotter, how were the wind conditions during the match? Honestly, pretty good. So apparently, the day before we shot, the ROs went through the course and shot everything. For them, it was crazy winds. For us, it was not bad at all. On one hand. On the other hand, we had this kind of a subtle wind that's kind of facing you from this direction and sometimes from this direction. And it was interesting in that from the shooting positions, mostly was a little bit from the right. But when I look out at the Mirage, closer to the plate, it was going the opposite direction. So trying to figure out wind was not so straightforward. There were relatively subtle changes, but enough to get you off of the plate. But there were a few misses that I had that were clearly due to wind. And almost all of them, at least all the ones I can think of, were because I just, second guessed myself. I kind of looked at the wind, let's say, and I guessed that I should be holding, 0.6 to the right. And I said, nah, it's not that strong. And I'd hold 0.4 and I'd miss to exactly where 0.6 is. So maybe it's just human nature to second guess yourself. But going forward, I'll need to experiment with that a little bit. Yeah. So where I shoot here in New Mexico, we usually have relatively strong wind. I very seldom shoot in a wind that's small. We had something along those lines at the long range class in Wisconsin in September of last year that I took. Also kind of weak, not a lot of wind, so it was fairly difficult to read, but it was enough to get the bullet off of the plate. And because the wind seemed to be shifting occasionally during the match, it was not entirely straightforward, but again, it was perfectly doable. I just screwed things up. I'm not very good at reading wind, but I'm not that bad. However, trying to process all of this on the clock when you're running out of time was very difficult. Right? It all sort of comes down to not just doing things you're used to, but doing them quickly and repeatably with significant economy of motion. Right? I was putzing around and everything. Right? So lots of mistakes, but that's just practice. Interestingly, my original idea was during the Christmas, New Year's break to spend a lot of time on the range and practice. And I got the flu, so I spent most of the time in bed recuperating. So I didn't get to do any really deliberate practice before going to this Hunter match. In retrospect, that may have been a good thing. It was probably very valuable to walk into this thing cold and make conclusions based on my match experience rather than on my various preconceived notions. I think in the grand scheme of things, this was better for me. All right, let's see if I can finish this foul thing today or not. Wish me luck. Yeah, that was awful. One interesting thing I was kind of considering for the lighter guns, when I was at the MDT booth during SHOT Show, they bought these New Zealand company called Mountain Gear that make a very, very lightweight 5-ounce bipod. It's more, for hunting and all that. But it might be an interesting option if I want to make a truly lightweight rifle for this exercise. We'll see. Another thing is that, from a standpoint of making weight, I kind of like shooting with a suppressor. I like shooting with a triple pull. I don't know if I can do it. I need to do a little math. But with a carbon fiber barrel and a 3-15 tangent theta, that's enough magnification for my purposes. Maybe I can put a triple pull on a fix. Triple pull, to me, for this type of competition, seems to be extremely valuable. But again, that's kind of getting you away a little bit from the whole hunting aspect. I'm not going to drag a triple pull into the field with me. So I don't know. Time will tell. All right. What else you got, guys? Going once. Going twice. Going thrice. We're at it for about 50 minutes. I was hoping to wrap this one up in about an hour thereabouts, so I can hang out for a few more minutes if there's anything else you want me to cover. I'm also kind of looking a little bit through my pictures from SHOT Show to see if there is anything that I missed during my coverage. What's interesting, MDT also came out with a titanium brake they call the Hunt brake. That kind of looked promising. Let's see, I talked about this. The shooting guys might not care very much. A friend of mine, a knife maker who has visited with me in the past, his name is Sean Houston. He was at the Spyderco booth during SHOT Show. And next to him was a very unassuming older gentleman. Turned out to be Phil Wilson, right? And if you're into knives at all, Phil Wilson is an absolute legend. So I am not really into taking pictures with celebrities, but I took a picture with Phil Wilson and Sean Houston and might frame that. A blind spotter. What tripod did you use, and did you ever shoot off of it during the match? So I used a inverted leg tripod from Sunway Photo. I think the model is called 3620. Just 2 leg segments, and because it is an inverted leg, it's very, very quick to deploy. I didn't really need to deploy it, right? Because of the long leg segments, you just open it and it's there. I had to shoot off of it once, and that was one of these kneeling things that I did not enjoy. I just don't shoot kneeling very much, and I needed to get above like a log or something and below the branches, so I had to get on a tripod, rifle on a tripod, and get on my knees. And I wasn't quite standing on my knees, not quite sitting on them, so that was actually quite uncomfortable. It was one of the stages that made me think that I need a second bag to put behind my hamstring, and I'd be able to shoot that a lot better. What cartridges are common in that league? Okay, so the way this league is set up, you cannot go too small. So I think the majority of people are shooting with 6.5 Creedmoor and up. Pretty much the weakest you can go is 6.5 Creed. And you have to make a certain power factor. I don't know the exact numbers, but if you're shooting factory 6.5 Creedmoor ammo, as I was shooting Hornady 147 grain load. They don't measure anything. But basically, I think if you're shooting the 6.5 Creedmoor is the way to go. Lots of people hand loading, and they were shooting quite a bit faster with heavier bullets than I was. I don't think ballistics is what slowed me down. Interestingly, something I forgot to mention, I was having all sorts of feeding issues with all 3 of the magazines I had. I nailed it down to magazine issues. With all the dirt and grime, my magazines really screwed up. One of the things I should have brought, didn't think about it, would be a chamber brush and something to keep the magazines maintained. I talked to the guys at Q, and I have a fairly early barrel extension, so with that one, they did have some feeding issues. I'm probably gonna, I'll get it resolved by the next match. I lost some time on feeding, but more on my own clumsiness. Beyond that, I didn't have any real issues with the rifle. Mr. Alpine. At some point, I was curious if I should go for the 3.5 to 21 by 44 striker or wait for the new 2.5 to 20 primary arms scope. That's a tough call. Once the primary arms gets here, I'm gonna look at it I'm gonna look at them side by side and be sure. I think the eye box is tighter on the striker, I think. But a lot depends what kind of reticle you want. So with the primary arms, they have this simple mill hash reticle. They call the DECA G2. And I have a couple of different 3 grid type reticles, one in the 2.5 to 20 and another in the 4.5 to 36. I think the way they do the 3 grid reticles is too busy. So if you're okay without a tree, primary arms might have an edge, but again, this is all speculation simply because once I test one, I'll know for sure. If you want a 3 reticle and this 3 grid type reticle and a striker works for you, that might be a better. I think the striker is a slightly more compact scope, slightly smaller objective, slightly less magnification range. But the eyepiece, I think, was probably better on the primary arms. They did a very good job with that eyepiece. I was quite impressed. So, let's see. Knockpicks Ace H50 new thermal. So the business with this knockpicks and all that sort of stuff, is that since the government keeps on making noises about sanctioning Chinese manufacturers, IRA and all that, they seem to be pushing these new brands that they just created to try to weasel out of sanctions. That's my best guess. So the Ace, I think, is the one that looks like a rifle scope, right? Ace H50. Hold on. Let me look. I'm in this knockpicks. It's just IRA. You notice that they stopped pushing the IRA USA brand, and they are creating these other brand names. These are just regular IRA products. That's not a bad thing. IRA makes very nice thermals. There you go. So H50 is. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's the one. Rix Optics also used to do that. It's this ocular magnifier bullshit. Yeah, I think that's nonsense. I would not pay for an ocular magnifier. I think it's a terrible idea. But like it does have a very fast. I think I've seen a version of this under the IRA brand, and it was in many ways, it was a nice scope. But the whole ocular magnifier thing is, I think, nonsense for the gullible. On the other hand, it depends what kind of deal you're going to get, right? I'm looking at the Knockpicks website says 6,000. I would not pay 6,000. If you can get it for a much better deal, yeah, it might be worth it. I'm not sure what kind of prices you're seeing. Okay. Look, I mean, if you're paying 6,000, you're kind of, beginning to get relatively close to some of the US-made stuff like Envision, and that becomes a tougher call. If you of the Chinese thermals that look like a conventional rifle scope, I have the Athlon that I rather like. It's from a different OEM called Guide, and it looks like it is notably cheaper. I think Athlon that with comparable specs is in the $4,000 range. Let me see. I don't know for sure how they compare, but they're going to be relatively close, and I'd save the 2,000%. Let me see, I'm on the Athlon website. I'm not sure what price. So it's Kronos ATS Pro. So Athlon revamped their thermal product line at the SHOT Show. Yeah, and I was pretty impressed with how nice they looked. I'm trying to find some sort of a price. There you go. So, okay, on the website it says $1,000 less. Yeah, I'd probably do that. So. And I don't know if that's with a laser rangefinder or not. You can check it out. Again, I would be reticent at this stage to pay $6,000 for a Chinese thermal, honestly. No. Okay. Mr. Alpine, thank you. I'll wait for your thoughts on the PA. I'm not sure when the production 2.5 to 20 by 48 primary arms is going to be available. I chatted with them. They'll send me one to play with. So as soon as I have it in my hands. You'll see it compared to a bunch of different things. Until then, like I liked it. I liked what I saw. I think it looks like a nice scope. I think they designed on their own this new turret. I think it's extremely clever. It's a good design, but the proof is in the pudding. I don't do reviews based on prototypes, so I want to see a full production scope before I make too many fundamental conclusions, really. All right, guys, we're right at about an hour. So if you have anything else you want me to cover, now's the time. And if not, I am going to bid you good night. So I'll quickly look through the different channels and make sure there is nothing there that I need to address. And while I'm doing that, if you have any other questions, put them in the chat box. If there's nothing, then and you think of something later, put it in the comments and I'll see it at that point. Let's see. Okay. What do we have here? Okay, all right. Now I have a pretty good idea what kind of delay I'm dealing with. Okay, this is all fine. Add on Rumble. Okay, I'm not very good on dealing with the Rumble interface. So here we go. What are we doing here? Okay. All right. I don't see any outstanding questions. Thank you all for sticking with me. I know all these live streams kind of come at you as a little bit of a surprise. YouTube screwed something up and they're not letting me pre-schedule these, so it's difficult for me to announce what's going to happen. Eventually, hopefully it'll get fixed and I'll be able to pre-schedule this so that it's going to be a little bit easier to plan. I do appreciate you sticking with me on such a short notice. Thank you all. If you have any questions, darkworldofoptics.com. That's where I spend most of my time. Thank you all and good night.